there's a power in communities to, if we can unleash that power in our own communities to support good mental health, then we can really support and support positive well-being in the community.
Absolutely. So it's a great work actually, and you are very well known in Tower Hamlets and definitely in other boroughs as well, I believe. Well, you have link.
Myself and Afsana have been colleagues for 3 years, working with Citizens UK. So we're very much about building community power.
Absolutely.
And often mental illness is associated with powerlessness. And we want to see people and communities working together to have some agency and influence in how things are working.
That's very good. We'll talk more. Afsana, I would like to hear from you as well. I know you've been here before, but can you tell a little bit about yourself, please? Thank you.
Yeah, sure. So I'm a project manager for Citizens UK and Queen Mary University. I work with, I mainly work in Tower Hamlets. I work with 20 organizations in Tower Hamlet, including the mosque and churches.
20?
Yes.
Great networking.
Yeah, yeah.
And we have Sisters Forum, we have mosque and nursery schools, we have secondary schools. And what we do, we bring people together to build power, because we believe in order to make change, you need power. And the power we believe in is actually like a relational power. So rather than mosque community, the Muslim community sticking with themselves in a bubble, or the church community, we bring them together, we open the conversation, we find a common ground, so they can actually work together. And even if that's not just like probably directly related to them, they're still supporting each other, because only by making sure that your neighbor is safe, the neighborhood will be safe. Right? So for example, Islamophobia is one of the projects that we work on, and we find often churches coming forward and helping. But this is not their issue, but they see Islamophobia is not is a Muslim issue, it's a community issue.
Yes.
And one of them is currently I'm working on is mental health,
yes.
With Rethink and Mind. They're also working with Citizens UK and Queen Mary. And today I'm here to talk about more probably how we are working with the, especially British Bangladeshi community in Tower Hamlets.
That's very good. Nice to hear from you. Phil,
Yep.
what do you think about mental health and well-being? What is mental health? What is I mean, people might say, mental health. So, what is it?
I'm not an expert, so I'm not
No,
a
I'm not
I'm
saying
not a
you're an expert,
clinician.
but you have been working in
but
the
for
field.
me, mental health is the ability to function, to have healthy relationships, to go about your life, to perhaps be able to work or look after your family. That's what mental health is. It's the ability to flourish in life, to have that in life. And so mental illness is that which disrupts that. So a change in our mood or behaviour or thinking or feelings that disrupt a healthy, functioning life. Yeah.
So definitely, but all of us, we have mental health, am I right?
Yeah, absolutely. We all have an emotional life. We all struggle with feelings and different thought patterns. We all have mental health. Yeah.
Apsara, mental health, and then I would like to know one thing about, people talk about the fear, you mentioned as well, worries. So do you think when people have fear or worries, do they turn into later stage become a negative mental health issues or something like this? You know, when people think about, I'm worried about something, or I'm fearful about this thing, or I'm scared about something. I mean, if they carry on for a long time, so future, do they build up something negative about themselves, about their mental health?
Yeah, so we all have a fear, we all have worries, but when the fear that we are experiencing, when that does not lead to some sort of positive action, and we are just suppressing ourselves with the fear, the more and more, and we're holding that for a very long time, and there is a very good demonstration on explaining mental health and how fears and worries adds up to that. So it's basically like a cup of tea, basically. It doesn't matter how heavy the cup is, but what it matters is like how long you're holding that. So if you're holding the cup for say like an hour, and then 2 hours, then 3 hours without actually
Very
putting
good
it down, right? So you will eventually feel numb in your hand.
Yes.
But the pressure, the weight of the tea or the water, whatever it is not increasing. But because you're holding it way too long time, you will feel paralyzed.
Yes.
And this is what's happening when we have fears and worries or any sort of negative feelings,
Negative
that we
thoughts
are,
in your
negative
head.
thought, exactly,
And
we
that
are not
leads to
exactly when we're not processing that, you know. So, for example, you could have a fear of like facing interview, right? But eventually, we all come across
Yes.
that fear because we all go through
It
interviews.
is maybe temporary, for a short period.
For a short period.
Yes.
But there are some fears that that probably quite systematic for certain community.
Yes.
For example, inequality, like housing. It could be housing. It could be
financial strain.
exactly. So that you are not dealing with it, right? And what Phil said, when you feel powerless dealing with your own issue, and you don't have connection with those who can deal with it, who has power to deal with it, that creates the fear and makes the fear to contribute that for a longer time, mental illness, because you're not dealing with it.
Thank you. Farah, I'll come to you. There is a report here, I'm just reading, well, it's not very clear here. 77% of teachers, leaders, support staff, it's a survey taken out, and many people, they have been suffering from mental health, as a post-COVID, and a lot of them are very worried about their life, still living in the, that kind of situation. Mental health is worsening. 77% of school staff, they think about. I mean, what do you think about that as you are a member of a school?
Thank you. To be precise, what we mean by mental health is something which we always don't give much importance, but that's the most important thing as the physical health, because mental health, it includes our emotional, psychological, and social well-being, overall well-being. It starts from the brain and it's connected emotionally, psychologically. And also it does affect us physically, because if we are too unwell for a long time, psychologically, emotionally, and it gradually affects us physically. And if I want to say it more precisely, it affects how we think, how we feel, and how we act. So it's very important that we know how to handle stress related to ourselves and also related to others. And in school, we do give very much emphasis on mental health, whether it's for the staff and definitely for the children. And for children, we do have a space called Place to Be. That is for the children who are in the school. So children from any age, from 3 to 11 for the primary school, and then and for the secondary and for the further, they can come to Place to Be and they can talk about any issues related to their studies, related to their habit, related to their family, whatever makes them worry or stress, they can come talk about it. And there are specialists in every school, from primary, secondary, and to the higher level, that they speak to children, they help them through cognitive session and talking session, and also there are group session to help children to come out of it. So school is always there.
Thank you. I have got another thing, because I can read it properly now. And thank you very much, Farah, for that. It says more than 3 in 4 school staff have suffered poor mental health linked to their work this year, particularly post-COVID. Yes. At least one behavioral, physical, or psychological symptom has been experienced by 77% of teachers, senior leaders, and support staff, found the education support charity. Don't you think it's very worrying?
It is worrying. It's not only teacher. People from any field of work, like from any profession they are in, they have suffered terribly. So it's not only teacher, to be precise, but the teachers were worried because, you know, they were coming in contact with children, and children come from different background, from different families. So teachers has to be cautious because after all, you are dealing with the life of a young people. So when you deal with life of young people, you need to be extra cautious because, you know, some other places, it's not that, what happened in other places? In other places, you might not have children. And some people work without children. But for us who works in school, we are always in contact with children. So when you work with children anywhere in any field, you have to be extra cautious. And that does put stress on teacher as well as anybody who is working with children. So it could be a child worker, it could be a childminder, it could be a nursery, definitely school. So.
Thank you very much, Farah. I'll come to you later on, Phil.
Thank you.
Farah was talking about, obviously, I just quoted about the teachers, the member of staff, but she mentioned about, obviously, children suffer. That is true, 1 in 5 probably, and you will talk more about this. How do you explain mental illnesses to young children then, or young people? How do you explain to them?
That's a really good question. I don't really know the answer to that. I think it's not so much explaining mental illness to children, it's spending the time to talk to children,
right?
To listen. I think that's the sort of key thing. And you know, teachers know this and parents know this. It's just so important to give space for children to listen to them, to let them play, let them talk, and so often I think we're trying to tell children things, and they're actually trying to tell us something. I think that's the key thing.
Absolutely. Okay, Afsana.
So it's safe. So it's safe for a young child or an adult to speak to someone because they you can trust them what's being said.
So how do you know if someone suffers from mental health? I mean, why I'm asking this question, because sometimes, particularly in communities, and some communities particularly, I'm not saying everybody, I can't generalize that, we when we talk about mental health, it's kind of stigma around in the society, within the families, within neighbors or neighborhood. People don't talk about that much. They don't come up to talk about this. So how do you identify? If you can identify, then you can give help. But if you don't identify which person is suffering from mental health, how do you able to approach to help?
Yeah, very good question. How do we identify? I think that requires a lot of cultural change and behavioral change. And when I say cultural change, I do not mean community changing it. It's more about institutional changes. How do our institution, our local mosque, our local churches, how do they create a space, a safe space, a brave space, where people openly, that doesn't have any agenda. The agenda is actually just listen to people, what Phil rightly mentioned. It's about just listening to the people. They can talk about anything and everything. We could have that and this is where institution is to invest on their people within the institution. When they're listening, how do they identify that the person is going through something? Because when the person feels safe to speak about it without being judged, you know, they will more likely to talk. Something, right? So when my recent experience working with some mentors, they were saying that what they hear is when they work with like somebody from different community, they tend to open up more than their own community.
Right.
Because, for example, this particular person I was talking to, she's from Eastern European country, and she's herself mentor. And when she is talking to somebody from Asian culture, they open up about their family.
Right.
Because for them, it's just sharing an information. She knows very well this Eastern European person would not be able to see with a negative or a positive thing. Whereas when like Asian person speaking to another Asian person about family matters.
Or extended family members, yes.
Yeah, or extended family members, exactly. You never will talk about your marriage. You never will talk about like your financial stability or instability. You'll never talk about like things that you're finding challenging because there is a huge thing about stigma. right?
Yes.
Like distrust, like
Yes.
what if she, what if he, what if they say that, what if they actually expose me? There's a whole fear of like the community pressure of
Yes.
looking and perceived as a good one. So this is why they don't want to do that. But with other communities, they do. But then with that comes a challenge. Sometimes the person from different community wouldn't understand or would not be able to relate to the level of mental health illnesses or experience the person is experiencing, because we all have different culture, different feelings, different way we express it. What for me is a big thing, it might not be a big thing for probably my colleague Phil.
Yes.
So here it comes with like safe and brave space.
Yes.
Absolutely.
We'll talk more. We have to go to a short break, and then we'll come and talk about more. Now we're talking about definitions and stigma, all these, and you mentioned about the children, but then we'll go to a kind of suggestions later on to talk about how we can help, or you can help. You guys, both of you have been working really well. Also, Farah is also in school working with the children, so we'll see how we can give. Also, some good tips will be available. Well, will be good to give later on in the third segment. Viewers, we are talking about mental health and well-being. Phil and Afsana and Farah via video link, they are talking about mental health and well-being. How do you identify? How do you talk about that? So we are talking about this. We have to go to a short break. After the short break, we'll be back. Please stay with us.
আসছো? আমায়ের ও কই? যাও দাঁত মাজো, মুখ টুক ধাও, ক্রিম লাগাও, then do your handwriting, 9 o'clock bed. এই ল্যাম্পটা এখান থেকে নিয়ে যেও।
Can you help me prepare for my trip? Can you help me prepare for my trip? Huh? Yes.
Yes, sure. প্রিয় দর্শক, বিরতির পর আবার এডুকেশন আওয়ারে আমরা কথা বলছি মেন্টাল হেলথ এন্ড ওয়েলবিং নিয়ে। So we are talking about mental health and well-being. So our program on ATN Bangla UK, we are broadcasting live on Facebook, on YouTube, on our website www.atnbanglauk.tv. You can use our app as well to watch our program and Sky Channel 779. We have two guests in the studio. Phil on my right, welcome back, Phil.
Good to be here.
And on my left, Afsana, and welcome back, Afsana. And also via video link, Farah Naz, a teacher. So welcome back, Farah.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you very much. So if you have any, you can email me. You can. You don't have to mention name. If you would like to ask any question, we'll try to help you out. I mean, obviously, we are not expert in the field of mental health, but my guests here, three of them, they work within this arena, and they work with young people, they work with the families, they try to help people those are suffering from mental health. So we can give some tips. Afsana, sorry, if I come to you. You just mentioned about this stigma, we mentioned that. I mean, when you see or talk to the family, I know you work with, young people, you work with young people as well.
Yes.
So when they talk about their mental health, or they have worries, they have, as you talk about the fear, they have got other issues as well. What kind of issues? I mean, I'm talking about mainly, you don't have to mention names, anybody's, like, can you get, I will ask Phil as well, like, can you categorize like 5 types of main, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 bullet points, something like this? I would like to mention that. Like people suffer from this issue, mainly, this issue. I'm sorry, it may be 100 issues, but mainly, what are the main issues, particularly in Tower Hamlets or within the community, particularly in London?
Yes, so when it comes to the conversation around with young people, these issues are different from talking to their parents, and also could be different from the faith leaders. But the main thing, most of them, when you actually categorize them, you see the repeated issues are kind of, for young people, is about the future, the insecurity, going into, like, Tower Hamlet has one of the, most of the schools, they're rated very good by Ofsted or outstanding. Students, they are able to get like 10, 12 A stars in GCSE, and for the A levels, they get 3, 4 A stars. But despite getting the grades, when it comes to thinking about university, his internal and external issue comes in place. So they're not dreaming to go to one of those top universities like Oxford University or Cambridge or LSE, right? They are keeping themselves very local. Locally we do have also very good universities, but the reason for they're not thinking about the big ones, it is because they don't want to go outside their local area, because there is a fear. Because there is a fear of, like, is that going to be my place? Do I belong to that sort of community? Would I be able to fit in? And there's also, it's come externally, right? Systematically, our children, our community, we suffered. We've not been welcome to those sort of places. So here's the fear. The bigger question is, like, I get the grade, but still I cannot go to the top university. And that affects my employability. I don't have connection with big corporates, right? So when it comes to job interviews, I don't get shortlisted, right? And that means I don't get good job. That means also that affect my buying a house. I don't have a stable job.
So you're thinking ahead what will happen in the long run.
So this is like anxiety and stress and fears are not when people in present, it's when people outside the present moment, right? When they're thinking about future, when they're thinking about something not so much in their control, or at least like they're feeling so powerless to control those moments. Right? So for example, young people, they can, how many times you hear they're protesting, like, why are we not going to get places at Oxford University? We're not doing that because we are accepting we're normalizing. It's okay. This is not our place, we're not going to go. We just accept what is nearby. Yes, I have to agree, like there are some really good universities locally, like of course the Queen Mary is one of them, UCL, we all have the campus there, King's College London, we have many other really good universities. But there is also a fear, like if you go to better university, your chances of getting a better job is even more, higher.
So this is one area of, and also later maybe we could come and talk about the family as well as other issues like maybe domestic issues within the family, maybe financial issues within the families, isn't it? That can be very sad for some young people as well.
Yeah, also like explaining to your parents, like why do you have to live on campus, right? You're explaining to your parents like I'm going on open days to Oxford University, or like universities that will cost you to visit this campus, So how do you explain? Because your parents probably are not probably understanding the whole concept. How do you explain the UCAS process? You're the first child probably going to the university. You've been, you don't know. How do you explain the financial student finance? How do you get the help? Do you know where to get the help? And I don't know how many schools providing that. And even if they're providing, is it adequate enough?
Good, we'll talk. Farah, if I come to you, in your school, don't have to mention about your school. In schools, generally, do they talk about mental health and well-being? In the assembly, maybe in the classroom, do they have special sessions? I mean, if they have worries, what do they do? Do children come and share? Or do they have any comfort zone where they can go and talk to someone and they can express their sort of something they feel like saying or feel like sharing?
Yeah. Like adult, it's normal for children to feel worried and anxious from time to time, such as when they're starting school or nursery or moving to a new area. So it's all normal, like because they are little human, so we can't ignore their feelings. And children can feel anxious about different things at different age, and many of these worries.
Sorry, can I just stop you for a minute, for a few seconds? I know you are in primary school, but I'm talking about generally what you have had or experienced. What kind of worries or what kind of issues they talk about or they're worried about or they're fearful about?
Okay,
generally.
I would like to mention briefly, like, children start to worry from very early age, actually, from the age of around 6 months to 3 years. Like you'll see that, it's very common for children to suffer separation anxiety. So when a young children come to school, like, nursery, so the nursery and the reception children, they suffer from separation anxiety. And what is separation anxiety? That is like, they used to be with their parents or carer, and suddenly they have to leave that comfort zone and come to school. So, and they used to be clingy. So what happens, since they become clingy, they don't want to leave their parents or the carer, so they start to cry. So that is a very important thing. We may think that it's not very important, but it is very important for them, because that's the thing they are fearing, leaving their parents or carer. And when they grow up a little bit, like, by the time of 3 to 4, that separation anxiety goes away. And for reception to year 1, year 2, they also develop, and they develop a different kind of anxiety or fear. And those are very normal for them to feel. We might find it weird, but when we were children, we had that fear. Like, fear of like, what would I say? Like they might not like some animals, or they might get scared of any insect, or they are scared of storms, heights, water, blood, dark. So these are also make them worry for the smaller kid. And also some of them may feel anxious because, they are not making friends, or they are having problems settling in school. They are not feeling comfortable with any of the adult. It could be like, adult who is in the dining hall, or adult who comes to play with them. So it could be any sort of problem they might suffer. So, and when they get a little bit older, they worry about their exams, like, year 2, 3, 4 to 6. So they worry, like, how their grades would be. These are all school-related problems.
Yes.
And also because many of the children do come from different kind of families. So, there are issues in the families. so which also affect them. So when it does affect them, and when they come to school, sometimes they stay at low spare. They don't feel very uplifted.
Yes.
And there is an issue of hunger, there is issue of homelessness,
Absolutely.
issue of family separation, death. So they all do affect children.
So you
So
mentioned about
if anything happens in the family,
yes.
so if anything
Different kind of
happens
what
in
is
the
different
family,
time. So mental health
Yeah.
in one issue is not permanent. At the age of 5,
No,
one kind
no,
of
no.
worries. Maybe year
Yes.
5, different kind of. So it is not
different.
permanent.
Year 5
One issue.
children will think
Issues
about, because
change.
some of them would be, like, for example, year 5 children, some of their parents might want them to go to grammar school, so there would be extra pressure on them to study extra to get a place in the grammar school. So, some of the children do feel pressure because they have to prepare for their SAT in year 6, and also they have to sit for their grammar exam. So they definitely get stressed, and they do get to worry that, they have to study hard, they have to have a place in a grammar school, and, getting a place in a grammar school does matter to some of the family, and it does matter to the African family and Asian family more, because we think that being at the grammar school is prestigious, so we might put extra pressure on our children, and some children can cope with it. So I would also suggest parents, that not getting a place in a grammar school is not end of the life. So, be careful about that. Do look after your child's mental
we will
health
talk
rather
about
than
the
putting
solution maybe
extra
to come
pressure.
to the last segment, but I'll go to Phil to listen
Yeah,
from
thank
him
you.
now. Phil, now,
Yeah.
Definitely.
two ladies here, and they
Yes.
talk about so many things. Now, I would like to hear from you in detail about this. How are mental health and well-being linked within, linked in young people or children or families? And also, during I can see a lot of things here you'd like to share. Like your experience, I mean, all this we are hearing, how do we make them aware about this? Someone is suffering, their mental health, their well-being, settle down, how to become like become a person like a well-rounded person to lead happy life.
I think our children and our families are under a lot of pressure.
Yes.
Today, and I think it's hard being a parent. It's the most important job we have, but it's a difficult job. As you've said from your article, teachers are under pressure, and we should recognise the amazing work that schools do.
Do you have any other data here?
Well, I think in terms of children, I think you mentioned earlier, sometimes during the pandemic in particular, about 1 in 6, 1 in 5 children sometimes were displaying mental health problems. But I think, anxiety is normal. We get worried about things. It's quite right. It's part of our child development or adult development to be worried about things and find out that we can get through things and survive them and adapt to them. But sometimes, the pressure that our families are under make that very difficult. So I think Farah was sort of talking a little bit about this. If there's issues at home, if there's violence at home, or if there's a lot of anxiety around getting food on the table, those sort of issues and impact on children, and we need to find ways to support children when those things are going on.
Well, I know you have been working with many young people. I mean, 18 plus people within different boroughs or maybe in Tower Hamlets as well.
Yep.
I mean, in general, what kind of worries or any kind of issues can you see?
Well, in general, I mean, I think we have worries about security. So I think it's when those worries become in mental health and mental illness is about when those anxieties become so much that we can't cope with them, or we feel we can't cope with them, and we can't have normal, what might be called normal, whatever that is, good relationships with people, or we can't go to work, or we can't function, and we can't get up because we're just worried about the day and can't face the day. And that's when it becomes something that really we need help with. And if we can talk, if people can start talking earlier in that process and sharing some of their feelings and some of their anxieties with other people, and if they're not really being resolved, get some help from their GP is really important, because if I have back pain, and I do have back pain, I try and play football and I'm a bit overweight, so I get back pain and I struggle, but I don't go to the GP with it because next week I'm okay. But if I was having back pain every day, if I was struggling to lead my life because I had back pain, I would go to the GP and I wouldn't feel ashamed. I would get some help, get some painkillers, get some. They might help me with my lifestyle a little bit, but certainly if we got those ongoing issues about our anxieties and maybe we're feeling depressed, then we need to, it's good to see the GP and they can offer some help.
Is there any particular reason nationally why you have so many, mental health, people are talking about a lot nowadays, and particularly post-COVID syndrome, a lot of other issues. How to make people or families aware about there is a service? Is there any service to help, like particular GP service? Is there any?
Yes, most GPs, for example, in Tower Hamlets, which I know best, most GPs will have a mental health lead. So there's lots of expertise around mental health with the GPs, and they'll refer people on to talking therapies, sometimes on the phone. They'll refer people on to a psychiatrist if they're concerned. There's lots of services out there. I think one of the issues we've had because of COVID is some of those services are harder to access. So there's some work to do to make those services more accessible. But there's community connectors who are now working in Tower Hamlets that help people who have come to the surgery and need some support with something, and they help connect people to community services. They might need a support group to go to. They might need a group where they're baking and can be with other people and just need connection.
Is it free for everybody or someone is suffering?
Well, we have lots of free services in the borough people can access, or very cheaply. I think one of the things is one of the ways to positive mental health is good connections.
Okay.
What really changes really supports good flourishing and good mental health, and all the evidence suggests
something you mentioned with the talk.
Yes, talking is good connection. So a healthy relationship, a mutual relationship.
With who?
With
families,
with our partners at home, with our families, with a friend, with somebody at a group that people go to, a support group in the mosque, in the church. Healthy, good relationships where you can talk and be listened to. These are the things that support good mental health. And we have to find a way in society to be better connected. I think one of the problems we have with our young people, and this is my theory, it's not scientific, but there's some psychologists would say this, is our young people are connected on screens. And the problem with our social media and other things is they have a sort of a message of perfectionism. That you have to get the 12 A stars, you have to look good, you have to be fit, you have to be funny, you have to have a lifestyle which other people admire. And our young people have to be online.
And also peer pressure sometimes.
Peer pressure, and that sort of perfectionism, whether it's you have to do well at school or you have to look good, is a real struggle for our young people, I think, to deal with. And we have to find a way to help young people with negotiate that, because it's not going away. And I think, perfectionism is a real issue.
So if I say, I have got a straight question, what do I do if I'm worried about my mental health? If I'm worried about, say, I'm a young person, 18 plus, I'm worried about myself, I need some help, what do I do?
Well, I would talk to your GP. That's a confidential conversation. So if you're really concerned about it, I would talk to my GP. I would talk to a trusted friend.
Trusted friend?
Yep.
Okay.
And it depends on, sometimes we don't want to talk to a loved one because we don't want to worry them. But actually, most of us want to hear about. If my wife is not feeling well, I want to hear about it. I don't want her to hide away from talking to me about it.
Well,
because she's worried about how I feel. So whether it's a partner, whether it's a family member, whether it's a stranger, and a GP is usually a stranger, and it can be quite helpful to have conversation. And it may be counselling is good for us because,
yes.
again, counselling is a way of somebody who doesn't know us and won't judge us for
but
what
I
we're
heard
sharing.
someone I was talking to other day who was saying, a family member who was referred to a GP, and then
Yep.
later on, they haven't got an appointment to go to somewhere. Referral is a long process.
Yes, and it can.
So if someone is suffering and
Yes.
doesn't get the service on time, is very difficult, and
Yep.
in the long run, that could lead to even worse situation.
Yeah, I think go to the GP. There are some services which are hard to be referred to at the moment because of waiting lists, and people are working very hard to try and free up those waiting lists, or to, one of the things that we've been working on in South London, for example, is finding support groups where people can, before they get to the counselling that's rationed and haven't got enough counsellors or money to support that, they can go to support group, which is where people can just talk freely about their issues if they want to. So there's safe and brave spaces where people can go to. So we do need to work. We believe, as community organisers, we believe that as communities we're part of the solution, we need to support community groups in the voluntary sector, churches and mosques and others to create spaces where people can talk.
We'll talk about this later on, because I have a question about whether, maybe you think about this, in Friday's sermon when it is given, how many imams in the mosque talk about mental health? I know we work. A lot of time we see good things they're talking about, but we'd like to know how many the church leaders, when they give the sermon, they talk about their speeches, special speeches, do they talk about mental health issues? I have never heard of. I've been in many mosques. I never heard of they talk about mental health. I don't know whether whether you can give some good guidance about this. We are talking about mental health and well-being. We have to go to a short break. We'll be back soon. Thank you. Sorry.
Shall we repeat it tomorrow?
প্রিয় দর্শক, বিরতির পর আবার এডুকেশন আওয়ারে আমরা কথা বলছি আজকের টপিক মেন্টাল হেলথ অ্যান্ড ওয়েল-বিং. This particular topic is very important because all of us, we have mental health, but sometimes our mental health doesn't help to do normal life, day-to-day life. So that's why we need to talk about this, and we need to make ourselves aware. All of us, we have mental health, but sometimes a negative mental health that affects our mind, our feelings, and also some occasions physical health as well, and well-being, definitely. So today's program, we are broadcasting live on ATN Bangla UK Sky channel 779. We are also on Facebook and YouTube. Please do share our program. Our website, www.atnbanglauk.tv. We have two guests at the studio. Phil here from, I've got so Community Engagement Manager, Rethink Mental Illness. Welcome back.
Yep. Good to
Thank
be
you,
here.
Phil. And Afsana Salik. Afsana, I call Afsana, Project Manager, Citizens UK and Queenberry University. And via video link, we have Farah Naz, a teacher from primary school. Farah, welcome back.
Thank you.
Afsana, before break, Phil talked about the help and support they need, and talk, community support, making people aware. So I have a question to you. I mean, I know in religious places, in community places, people gather, like mosques. I know mosques, they do great, Friday sermon, they do that. And other time, imams talk about that, many, many good things. But I personally never heard of, they talk about mental health. Maybe they talked, but I missed that, probably. I myself missed that. I mean, why? I mean, mosque is very powerful, or religious places, or community groups, they are very powerful when they talk openly about mental health. I'm not saying maybe they will find a technique to talk, I don't know how, but if they do talk about it, then people will, will know more about mental health, so they might come for the support. Why is not happening?
Well, it's not really just about why it's not happening. I would probably start with positive tone that it is happening, probably not as much. There's so much more to probably do.
Okay. So 20 years back and now?
Well, probably 20 years ago, I don't remember what happened, but I say last few years probably. If you look at some of the big mosques, they do have counseling services in place.
Great.
The question probably would be like, how many people know about it?
Yes.
Is it just only when you go to the mosque, you have access to that? What about those Muslims who cannot go to the mosque? How can they also access to that?
Right.
Do they know when the service is open? Do they know what sort of help they can actually receive? So there are many mosques, they do have that, but it's about also raising awareness about that service. And sometimes the service is not very accessible, and sometimes it is people not accessing to service deliberately.
Right.
So the service is there, but people not taking this help.
So make people aware more about that.
Exactly. And how do we encourage that? So it's not about just like the imam talking about what is mental health and what is not, but it's rather about actually talking about the services, because even if he talks about mental health on sermon for 10, 15, 20 minutes, I don't know how much he can cover. But if he actually talks about, like there is a service, one-to-one support you can actually receive, that will actually bring a better outcome than actually he talking about that.
But on a separate note, I can say this, imam is not the expert of mental health,
Yeah.
probably, isn't it?
But many imams, like I am aware of, there are many services and particular courses for imams to learn about mental health. And there are many young British-born imams are actually,
Great.
part of their study is
Yes.
actually going to that. And one thing definitely is we're doing much better. Is like now we are not very quick to connect mental health and spirituality. There in the past there was the whole thing about like if you are going through some stressful time, if you are stressed about it, if you are feeling low, there's probably a disconnection with God. Could be that's the case, but that cannot be supported so strongly because even in our faith, we see Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, feeling worried when 6 months he did not receive any revelation.
Yes.
So can you really tell he did not have good iman, good faith?
Absolutely.
You know, so it's about actually how do we use this.
So you cannot
scripture.
generalize something like that.
Absolutely not. You know, and also we cannot just like, you know, imams cannot just, or priest, you know, cannot just say, okay, increase your prayer, increase your, activities. And
Then your mental health will go away.
It's not going to go. Of course, like being proactive. Prayer does help, but we need to be proactive. We need to also talk about it, what Phil was constantly talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And who do you talk? This is the main question. And this is what we need to talk about in the mosque.
Yes.
You know.
Absolutely. Farah, just my question, we're coming to during the last segment, we'll be talking about the solutions. We can't give any solution, but how can you support, say in school, what do you do as a school? I'm not talking about your school, but what do you know about in different schools? What do they do? Do they have sessions? Do they support families? Do they support young people? What do they do?
Thank you. School has got a thing called Place to Be. Place to Be is a children's mental health charity. They are working over almost 25 years of experience. They have the 25 years of experience working with pupils, families, and staff in UK. School also has got staff support worker who has got certificate in understanding children and young people's mental health. So anybody who is suffering from depression or anxiety, they always can go to Place to Be. The Place to Be is always available in school, and also the support worker. And in every school, I have seen in my primary school that there is a poster about Place to Be. The different poster which it talks about, like, you know, if you're feeling low, come to talk to expert or support worker in Place to Be. And there are children I have seen, they always go to Place to Be to talk about. So it's like, 20-minute session or half an hour session, depending on the case. Children go for anything. Maybe they are having difficulty making friends. They can go to Place to Be and talk about it. And Place to Be, what it does, it provides mental health support in schools, or in all the schools, like primary, secondary, and I mean one-to-one and group counseling. And they use different tried and tested methods, which is backed by various research. And they are professional actually. And they offer expert trainings and professional qualification also to the staff, also to the teacher who deals with children in every day. So if any children is suffering for any kind of anxiety, it could be like, our children is thinking like, they would be shifting house and he's worried that he's gonna lose friend in his neighborhood. Yes. And that can affect him, and he can go to school and he can talk to the teacher, and teacher will refer him to the Place to Be, because Place to Be provides children the counseling, and it also it's a mental support in schools. So there shouldn't be any problem. And also I'm not sure whether parents do know about Place to Be, but Place to Be is very much there. So they should, if they're finding it difficult to talk to their children, they can talk to the teacher and let them know that this is what my son or daughter is experiencing. So do you think there is any help from the school which will help my son or daughter to overcome it? And there are staff always available. And how does Place to Be help? What it does is people book appointment with the Place to Be and or the counselor to talk about their problem or worries, anything, and then they do provide one-to-one counseling. And that one-to-one counseling can be weekly counseling using talkative, creative work and play to support the children. So while playing, while doing any interesting creative work, they talk about their worries, and that's how professionals come to learn about the children, because children would not know like adults. Even adults sometimes can't pinpoint what's the problem. So place to be, those counselor help children to dig out the problem, like ask them that what's making them worry, what's making them anxious. So the moment they find it out, they give the solution through creative session, talk session, for children to identify. And there are also group work, like group work is therapeutic, therapeutic group exploration issues, like friendship, building self-esteem, and then transition period, because there would be children of age 10 to 11 in the primary school. They'll be going to the secondary school. Yeah, so they would be experiencing puberty. So that puberty also is an issue which makes them worry, and that's a big factor. So we need to identify that. So through group counseling, they come to terms to understand that. Also, it helps to deal with the bullying. So through group work, the bullies can be identify and sorted. And then there is family practitioner in the school. So that it's giving access to family practitioner to provide dedicated service, and they support parents and the carers in the primary school who have got issues like domestic violence or death or severe crime or separation, anything as such, drug, alcohol, because these do exist, and children do come from family of drug and alcohol abuse, domestic abuse, and other crime. And through guidance and training and providing safeguarding advices to staff, place to be and other health practitioner help every school teacher aware that how they should identify and deal. So they should the parents, if they have any worry, and children even they do go, because I have always seen children coming to the place to be because they couldn't make a friend, they're upset, so they want to talk about it. So children are more aware about the mental health than we adults are. That's what I have found. And of course, there is special educational needs disabilities experts. So they also deal with all these things. Thank you.
Thanks, Sarah. Thank you. But I'll come to Phil. Before I come to you, we're coming towards the end of the program. Yeah. We'll watch a short 1.5 minute video clip to see a person how he's not expert, but they help in a creative way young people. Those have worries and those suffers from mental health. So may I request the technical team, please show this video clip. Thank you.
The Worry Wizard is a workshop and assembly program that was written in conjunction with the amazing Worry Wizard, Miss Amy, who wanted to create a program for young people to deal with their well-being.
Worry Wizard is like somebody that helps another person with their worry. If they talk to me, I help them as much as I can. Everybody will have a worry. Like it could be big or it could be small, but everybody has a type of worry. Whatever they like say their hobby, they should do that, because I never knew I could do that. To make it feel better.
It's nice to have people different coming into school, having teachers they see every day, kind of telling them that it's alright to have worries and things like that can kind of get repetitive and things like that, but new people, new fresh faces, and especially Adrian coming and doing it, how he did it, made it really enjoyable for the kids, and I think it really worked well. Giving young people the skills and tools to kind of navigate real life, so to really focus on trying to make their well-being shine. So the idea not that we can eliminate their worries, but that they find ways to outshine those worries.
The wonderful thing about the Worry Wizard is that it's giving children, equipping them with the tools that they need to be able to deal with things, because quite often children think that magic is real and they can magic their worries away, which isn't the case. And the Worry Wizard addresses the fact that it's not magic, you've got the power to be the Worry Wizard.
Thank you very much. So worries to well-being.
Yeah.
We are coming to the end of the program. Just we've got a few minutes, couple of minutes to go. I'd like to ask you, I mean, any good tips? How can you help? And also, you have something here would you like to share, please, with us?
Yes, there's a well-known piece of work which is based on research, which is called the 5 Ways to Wellbeing. And it's a piece of research by the New Economics Foundation that's been around for a while. And it has the 5 ways to well-being. One of them is connection. We talked about that quite a bit tonight. Yeah. Talking to people, having good relationships. And actually the good news about faith communities, I'm a person of faith, I'm a follower of Isa, blessing be upon him, and of Muslim communities, is actually the evidence says that those faith communities are good for our mental health, right? So being part of a faith community is, on average, good for our mental health. We can do better, but they are good for our mental health. So connection is really important.
Yeah.
Taking notice is an interesting one. So being thankful for the good things.
Yes.
So often we get stuck in anxiety about the news, Ukraine, COVID. Being thankful about the good things can help support good mental health. Learning new things. Always having something that we're learning can be really good for our mental health. And giving, again, that's part of faith, sort of our commitment as a person of faith is to give. So giving back to the community, encouraging someone else. Tomorrow is Time to Talk Day, which is an initiative of mine.
Is it tomorrow?
I think it is the 3rd. It's 3rd tomorrow, isn't it?
Yes, you can hold it.
It's Time to Talk Day. I hope you can see that.
This camera, yeah.
Oh, yeah, nice one.
This camera this way.
Camera 2. And this is just encouraging people to ask the question, are you okay?
Tomorrow. Why is it
tomorrow.
Happening?
Well, I think across the country different activities are happening. But it's really an excuse just to say, remind people, time to talk. And just ask the question, how are you? And not just to sort of roll past it, are you okay? Mm-hmm. And have a chat. You have a list there of some of the tips for working with young people. On Time to Talk Day, perhaps each of us could get out our mobile phone and just encourage someone. Just say, thank you for being in my life. Thank you for what you've done. Thank you for being a friend. That's such powerful. We have an encouragement deficit in our country. Our children certainly do, and we need to encourage each other. So that's maybe one thing we can do tomorrow.
Absolutely.
Is just
we'll remember that tomorrow.
Yes, encourage. Encourage means make somebody courageous to live their life. So let's do that tomorrow. So that's another way. Have I got time for 1 or 2 more ways to well-being? Physical activity is good for our mental health. To be active, to go for a walk, to do what we can within our limitations of our health, to be active is really good for our mental health. Mm-hmm. So look up 5 ways to well-being on the internet. You'll find them. And I say if you can do all those things together, it's called joy. So if you can learn how to cook a new meal with friends, and be thankful for the meal, give thanks for the meal, then that's what you call joy, and it's magic. So
absolutely. Tomorrow we remember that. And also, I heard being kind to yourself and also feel happy. Being kind to yourself as well.
Yeah, forgive yourself and be kind to yourself.
Absolutely. Afsana, within 30 seconds, or I can say 1 minute, what tips would you like to give to our audience, those that are watching program tonight?
Yeah, just probably agreeing with everything what Phil said. Probably adding one more is identifying also the issue that is giving you anxiety. So you don't wake up in the morning feeling fear. You don't wake up in the morning feeling worried. Mm-hmm. It is probably because last night you went to bed thinking about today I have to pay rent and you don't have the rent sorted. It could be also your grade coming or your exam. So you have to identify a problem. You cannot go away from the problem. First identifying, acknowledging it, and then finding out who else also can help you with that problem. If you have housing problem, who can help you with that? If you have exam problem, who can help you with that? Alongside with, other issues that you have. Of course, faith does help. There are many other charities out there that is to help. Do seek help, and seeking help does not make you less weaker. Thank you.
Farah, 30 seconds. What tips would you like to give to our audience, please?
Already Phil has mentioned about 5 practices. So in brief, it was physical, and then foster positive, and then sleep, building resilience, and also eating healthy. So I would like to say about a little thing which is encourage everyone to speak about it. And what I would say about the children, that they can turn and empty. I would tell to the teacher and also the parent to follow it. Like, if you see your children is getting anxious, you can turn an empty tissue box into a worry box and get your child to write or draw about their worries and post them into the box. Then they can throw the box together, and at the end of the week or day, then they will see like, okay, the worry is gone. So when I will always encourage them to write diary or like, do drawing or do a breathing exercise, count in 1, 2, 3, count out 1, 2, 3. That way it will help them to remain calm and will help them to build resilience.
Thank you. 20 seconds. Would you like to give any tips? Just last tips.
I say yes. Just it is time to talk. Find somebody who you can share something with, and it could be something. It doesn't have to be a problem. It could be something that you enjoy.
Thank you very much, Phil, Community Engagement Manager, Rethink Mental Illnesses, Afsana Salik, Project Manager, Citizens UK and Queen Mary University, and Faranaz, a teacher from primary schools. So we need to really think about our mental health. We have to help each other, talk about this, and tomorrow is a day we can talk. We can do good networking in a positive way and make ourselves feel better. Parents, do help your children. এই প্রত্যাশা বিদায় নিচ্ছি। ভালো থাকবেন, সুন্দর থাকবেন। আমরা আবারও কথা বলবো মেন্টাল হেলথ এন্ড ওয়েলবিং নিয়ে। আমরা চাই সবার পজিটিভ মেন্টাল হেলথ এন্ড ওয়েলবিং নিয়ে আমরা জীবনে বেঁচে থাকবো, এবং এই প্রত্যাশায় আমরা বিদায় নিচ্ছি। ATN বাংলা ইউকের এডুকেশনাল প্রোগ্রাম আপনারা দেখবেন এন্ড এনকারেজ করবেন অন্যদেরকে দেখতে। ধন্যবাদ।
থ্যাংক ইউ। ফোন করি আগে। এই যে নাও, তোমার এগুলো নিয়ে যাও বাড়ি। তুমি খেলা